Hi everyone, I'm last, and can't, so you're almost out of here. I'm taking a little different tact. I'm talking about a kind of a larger scale project, and I want to talk about it for three reasons. One, it's a really significant kind of 7-year period in the history of MSU that shaped MSU in ways that we still don't understand, and has probably changed MSU to a degree that, again, it's kind of a hidden piece of history. And then the second reason I want to talk about this is that the great tragedy of the digital kind of archive world, library world, and this is that we're doing this wonderful work of producing all this stuff, but people aren't using it, right? And so this is a project that's kind of actually attacks how can we make this stuff more usable, particularly in the classroom and for teaching situations and things like that, but for the general user as well as the researcher. And then finally, I wanted to talk about this because it is a live project, vietnamproject.archives.msu.edu, but we're still in a soft launch phase. So if you want to visit there, take a look at it, and send us any critiques, other than the fact that it is slow. We know that. Please send us any critiques, and we'll be happy to, at this point, still change things. So anyways, this is really a project that is all about digitizing about 100,000 different documents that's held by the MSU archive. It was about a 7-year period at the end of in the 50s into the 60s where MSU got into the game of regime support, with supporting the royal family of Vietnam, trying to stabilize the government, trying to help them out, agriculture, criminology, all kinds of different phases. In that period, we got in bed with the CIA, which led to some real problems on campus. And then there was draconian measures that were actually put in place in working with the U.S. military. See, I'm glad Peter's gone. So we can look at this as a bad thing or a good thing, but about 6 years ago, they actually removed all of the barriers that we had, and we are starting to pick up our military funding. But it did really kind of shift the way in which we do our work here and how we do our work. So it's interesting from that point of view. So I'll just kind of quickly go through this, and you can kind of look at it, as I said, and see what you think and what you everything. So we have the basic search, right? That people can go in and do a search and find out any kind of the documents that are there. And we have the advanced search, and anyone who works in a library and archive knows that nobody ever uses the advanced search. Right? It's very little used, but you always have to have one. And then, of course, what you get from this is the Google results, a whole list of things that can become overwhelming, and you really don't know what to do with it. So one of the things that we're all about at Matrix is trying to make a more complex output and different ways of exploring it. So what we try to do is let you browse by different ways. So you can browse by subject matter. You can browse by the formats we have, whether it's photograph, film, document, and we also have tagged all the things in multiple ways so that you can find it through different topics and different tags. So here's the shot of the original format. You notice that I use a presentation because I never trust that technology is going to work, right? But you can actually go to the site and slide right now. We do have, you can browse by the different collections. We have 3 major collections here. We have the General Vietnam Papers. We have the papers of Professor Fischel, who is a political scientist. And we have Professor Turner, who's actually still alive, I think in the 90s, who was part of the Department of Criminalistics, which is now criminal justice. Right, so he's a professor of criminalistics. I wanted to be there. That'd be cool. What we've also done with the site to make it more useful and to put in context this kind of collection is not simply kind of, again, put the collection out there, but to put it in the context of larger history, right? So if you wanted to use it for a classroom, you'd understand where do these papers, where do these specific documents fit into the kind of larger thing, thinking about the world, thinking about South Vietnam, and just thinking about Michigan State history at this particular point. But what we also wanted to do was to allow people to kind of explore it in different ways. And as you can see, one of the things that's kind of popular now is to think in terms of a timeline. So it's a way for, especially if you have a class or students, to kind of get into the materials thinking in terms of you're talking about a certain historical period. They can see how this, and then our famous John Hanna. But you can actually go through the timeline, and the documents become part of the timeline, and you can access the actual document as part of it, and you can pop it out and see the documents and read the full document. So again, we're trying to think of how can we make access better and more fruitful within a collection. And then along with that, we also have a mapping function, which actually places the documents onto a map of the country. Again, it's a way, especially if you had a class and thinking about students, to get them to visualize the country and where these things are happening and what's happening and the concentration. So what you can actually do is you can pick a year that you want to look at specific documents, and then you can actually pick document types, whether you want the maps, the letters, the reports, the minutes, right? And then once you made those two selections, then what it will do is show you where there's documents from particular places, right? And one of the things that we had to decide ultimately is when we're mapping a document, what does that mean? And in our particular case, it means that it's about that region. Because frankly, most of these documents were actually written in the United States, right? Reports and things and stuff like that, or letters, but they're about this particular region. And the nice thing about having technology is they can actually appear in more than one region if it's about more than one region that they're talking about. And then once you get here, and of course the other interesting thing is that when these documents were written, the map of Vietnam is totally different from the map of Vietnam today, right? And what it looks like. So that's why we kind of just broke it down into these regional areas. And then my last slide here, once you get in, you can click on any one of these regions and it tells you what's in that particular region. Then you can click down from that and you can see all the letters, the reports, the minutes, the memos, the speeches, whatever is there. Then you can click on any one of those things, you get the full record, and you can see the document, and then you can get to all the metadata about that particular document and on down. And we have varying levels of metadata for the different documents depending on the importance of the collection. As all the librarians in here and archivists know, the most expensive part of doing any project isn't the technology, but it's the metadata, right? It's all about the structuring of data. That's the most important part of this. You get here after my talk? Anyways, that's it. Please take a look at it, see what you think, see how useful you find it, give us feedback about what we could improve, what would make more sense, particularly in sense of its usability. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do something when I started this all out. I didn't introduce the other, it's NEH funded. Cynthia Gehring is the head of was the head PI. Charles Keith, a historian, was the main historian on here. I simply sat there and looked at people doing things as part of the project. Catherine Foley did most of the work on this. She's a project manager at Porta Vestico over in the archives, oversaw the digitization of the actual material.